Hey everybody, it's Katie from Bobby Hair Studio. Today I'm going to show you how I took this kid's hair from this to probably like the sickest mullet I've ever seen in my life. Well, I mean, it's pretty average, but I like it. So my client has naturally pretty wavy, almost curly hair, and the mullet is really going to bring out that texture in his hair, so we're really excited to see what happens there. This is a really quick, easy tutorial for anyone who wants to know how to do a mullet. What I've done is I've sectioned out a square section from behind the ear up towards where the hair starts to curve, where the skull starts to curve, and I've sectioned out the back, the front, and the two sides. Now what I'm going to do with the two sides is first I'm going to kind of clipper away all of my extra length with like a level 4 on my clippers, a guard 4, and that'll give me a general idea of how everything's going to sit. And of course, I'm going to do both sides. I want to make sure it's really even and really equal. This is just clear cutting away. The fade will come in just a moment. For a mullet, you don't want to go too far behind the ears because then it starts to turn into a mohawk because you're shaving off essentially the entire side. So you do want to keep half of each side, which is the back half behind the ear. And here I'm just blending up from essentially like a 1 to a 4. I'm keeping everything on an angle from his hairline. It's kind of a diagonal fade that he's got going on here from the 1 to the 4. And just take it slow. You always want to make sure that you're not taking off too much because that 4 up there is necessary for in that corner to give that little bit of blend. And because he has so much hair, I'm essentially clear cutting dry before I wash his hair when I do like the real cut. And I'm essentially setting my guide as well. So the front piece is setting the length for the top. And then what I'm doing is I'm parting his hair down the middle and I'm creating a guide down the parting, which is going to be kind of skinny, all the way down to the back of his neck. You're going to see here in a second, so that when I actually wash his hair and start cutting, you're going to see that there's a guide there for me to play with. And I wanted to do this dry because I want to see how his hair sits when it's dry. So here you see me cutting his guide, and that's going to go all the way down the center of his head down towards the nape of the neck. Something to keep in mind is that the whole top is the same length. I'm lifting up to just like straight up, keeping it the same length. And then in the back, I'm actually kind of swooping out my guide, if that makes any sense. Essentially, I'm slowly going longer and longer as I get towards the back, but because I don't want to have like a Kentucky mullet, I want to have like a BC mullet, I'm, just trying to give it only a little bit of extra length down towards the nape of the neck so that he doesn't have too much of a ducktail going on. It's still going to look really mullety, but it's not going to look over the top like a really crazy tail at the end. Because we're keeping it classy over here. It's classy mullet time. So now that he's all washed, I'm just going around the head and following my guide. I'm cutting with a little bit more precision, but I still like to chip into this kind of haircut because of his hair texture. And you can see up there, he's got that little bit of that top kind of sitting how we want it to sit. The hard part is definitely connecting the sides. I'm going to show you how I do that. I actually take a razor blade and I texture out everything by giving really, really deep chips. And then I take the blade straight and horizontal to kind of layer in heavily into the sides around the ear. And that will give you that disconnected connection, which probably doesn't make a lot of sense until you actually see it when it's dry. You still want to see that these sides are disconnected, but you want to give a little bit of texture around them so that it doesn't look like a mohawk. You still want it to have that mullet look, which has this feathered look around the edges. With mullets, I really love to pull out the razor blade because I'll do the full length of the hair with the scissors just to make sure that all my lengths are the same, and then I bring out my razor blade and that will give me a lot of texture and definition and pieciness where I want it to be, and it's actually like a lot of fun. I know razor blades can be a little bit intimidating or scary to some stylists, but once you get your hands on one and you start using it in your client's hair, you're just like never going to want to go back. I love razor haircuts. The back is one of the other challenging areas to do with a mullet because you do want to make sure that you maintain some of that length. So I'm going in to find my guide and making sure that I've textured out his hair, but I'm still following that length that I want to have around the base of the neck. Some people might want to have more length, which is totally fine. Some people might want to actually have less length around the ducktail, but then again, it almost looks like that faux hawk look that was pretty popular for hockey players in 2011. So in order to keep your mullet looking delish, you got to make sure that the ducktail is prominent enough, but not too prominent. So that's why you need to go in with the razor and give it a lot of texture so that it flips open around the ear naturally and that it is still longer than what's around the crown and the top of the head. And again, with the whole shape of this thing, the top of the head is just all straight lifted up and cut straight across. The whole thing is like a big block. And then you come down to around the crown, again, keeping that block shape. And when you come down the neck, you follow in almost like a slide kind of direction, and that gives you that ducktail look. When I am going to the sides, I like to use my razor to slide cut down to give it a lot of texture, and I like to pull it out straight at a 90-degree angle and try to connect it to the back as much. Now, this is something you're not seeing in between the clips, but I am always checking my lengths on either side to make sure that the cut is symmetrical and even. I just got my cousin to film for me this one, so this is her first time filming. She didn't catch everything, but you know, I'll try to tell you guys everything that I didn't get filmed in here. And what I'm doing is I'm just pulling out vertical and horizontal sections just to release some of the weight from his hair because he has a ton of hair. He's a teenage boy. He's got a lot of it. And that helps his hair to naturally sit back and sit with a little bit of curl, wave, and texture, which is all the things that we want to see in this mullet. And here he is looking fresh. It's mullet time. This was honestly like one of my favorite cuts to ever do, ever. This was so much fun. And I think he looks pretty wicked with it. And I think it's actually like, I mean, for mullets, as far as they go, I think it's a pretty classy mullet. I hope you guys enjoyed this and learned a little bit about how to cut a mullet with a razor. And everybody, please remember to follow us on Instagram at Bobby Hair Studio. And also, if you want to learn a little bit more about hair, follow me on Instagram at vancity.blonde. I have a lot of tips and tricks on there. And remember to like and subscribe and turn on notifications for our future videos. Bye guys. Thank you so much.